Let's just get right into it. In this explainer, we're unpacking a feeling that probably hits a little too close to home for a lot of us. Why you feel this immense, crushing pressure to do absolutely everything perfectly. We're not here to give you some loud, rah-rah motivational speech. We're doing a psychological exposure. We're going to quietly, precisely look at the hidden gears turning inside your own mind and do the deeply introspective work to figure out what's really driving you. So let me ask you something directly. Do you feel like one single mistake is going to completely change how people see you? Just let that sink in for a second. Think about that blinking cursor on a blank screen and that mental clock just ticking away in your head. If your answer is yes, or honestly even a hesitant maybe, you aren't alone. That building anxiety, that visceral feeling of I absolutely cannot mess this up, that's the ultimate hook into the mind of someone trapped by perfectionism. And this internal anxiety, it manifests as a massive daily weight. We're talking about the real exhausting symptoms of overthinking. It's rewriting a 3-sentence email for 20 minutes just to sound, effortlessly casual. It's over-preparing for literally every minor meeting, avoiding hitting that submit button until a project is utterly flawless, and carrying around this heavy, constant fear of making just one mistake. You aren't just trying to do things right, you are intensely, exhaustingly trying to do them perfectly. And the core reason behind all that exhaustion? It's this haunting reality, because good enough never feels safe. Just let that linger in your mind for a moment. Even when your work is objectively correct, there's this invisible red X living in your head. It's a total psychological gut punch, isn't it? But it completely validates your exhaustion and that nagging feeling that your work is never truly done and your safety is just always somehow on the line. So why does good enough feel so incredibly dangerous? Well, it all comes down to an internal rule. This isn't just you preferring things to be neat and tidy. This is a subconscious survival equation that feels like it's literally engraved in stone inside your mind. Your brain is dictating that perfection equals approval, and therefore perfection equals safety. Because of this rigid rule, anything less than perfect isn't just a simple error. Your brain genuinely perceives it as a dangerous risk to your survival and your environment. Now, let's look at how this builds into something even deeper with our self-esteem, creating what we can call the worths equation. In a healthy state, you have constant worth. That's the idea that you're valuable simply because you exist. But for the perfectionist, self-worth completely collapses into conditional worth. It's the belief that you are valuable only when you perform and achieve. This brilliantly cuts through all the noise and shows exactly how your value has become tied exclusively to what you produce. And that leads directly to a really painful internalization. I am what I achieve. When you tie your entire identity to your outcomes, what happens when you fail? Or, what happens when you just have an off day? When your achievements drop, you don't just feel a little disappointed, you feel like you are quite literally disappearing. So where exactly does this come from? Perfectionism is rarely something we just wake up and invent in adulthood. If we trace it back, the origin of this pattern usually starts way back in childhood. Maybe you were praised only when you got good results. Then in school, you were corrected harshly for making mistakes. Adolescence brought this constant, brutal comparison with your peers. And finally, adulthood arrives, cementing a chronic fear of failure. This proves a really vital point. This is not a broken character trait. It's a heavily conditioned response, trained into you over years by authority figures. Which brings us to the lingering echo of that entire timeline. It's this thought, I am only valued when I'm perfect. I want to pause for a full second there. Let yourself recognize that voice. That is the echoing voice of your inner child, and it still controls your daily actions today. When your early approval was tied entirely to performance, your brain learned this as an absolute, unbreakable rule. So how do we cope with that intense inner voice? Well, we fall right into the perfection trap. Step 1, you push harder. Step 2, you try to eliminate all mistakes entirely. Step 3, you attempt to control all outcomes. But under this immense, crushing pressure, your foundation inevitably begins to crack. The exhausting reality is that the more you chase perfection and the more you try to tightly control every single outcome, the more fragile your world actually feels. We really have to expose what's actually driving the car here. There is true ambition, which is driven by passion and readily accepts failure as just a natural part of learning. And then there is fear-based performance. That's driven by the fear of judgment, and it leads you to actively avoid risks just so you can maintain approval. Stripping away the illusion of ambition reveals the hidden fear of not being enough that is actually fueling your actions. Let's just state it plainly. This is fear. It's not ambition. Let that uncomfortable, intense reality sit with you for a moment in silence. Acknowledging this difference? Yeah, it's uncomfortable, for sure. But it is also deeply, profoundly validating. Because it finally explains why you can never, ever just relax. Now let's look at the paradigm shift required to actually break this cycle. Your worth was never meant to depend on perfection. And look, this isn't just some fluffy motivational poster. It's a grounded, fundamental truth about your psychology. Your inherent worth operates completely independent of your flawless execution. And this completely shifts how we actually interact with the rest of the world, because people don't connect with perfection, they connect with real. When you finally stop the ticking clock and submit that imperfect piece of work, or when you just show up as your flawed, genuine self, the catastrophic failure you fear, it simply doesn't happen. The world doesn't collapse. People are actually intimidated by a flawless facade. What they truly connect with is authenticity. Which brings us to a crucial, provocative question to leave you with in this explainer. What if you don't need to be perfect to be okay? If any of this felt uncomfortably accurate to you today, I really want you to remember the most important takeaway. You are not broken. You are conditioned. And the beauty of this psychological exposure is that once you understand your conditioned mind, you stop being controlled by it. Take a deep breath, let that question sit with you, and thanks for joining me to explore